Coming up, a developing story this afternoon, a convict escaping in a Texas Department of Corrections bus, authorities in hot pursuit. Plus, caught in Burleson County, a separate manhunt for a different person coming to an end early today. Plus, this summer stretch of weather just continues here in the Brazos Valley, but will it come to an end or get hotter? We bring you the details. Your KRHD News starts right now.
Connecting the Brazos Valley, this is KRHD News.
If this person is seen, do not attempt to take him into custody by yourself. Please contact the nearest law enforcement agency through 911. Do not attempt to take this individual into custody by yourself. Get law enforcement near to where you saw him.
Thanks for joining us on your KRHD News. I'm Garrett Hoddle. Developing in Leon County this afternoon, authorities there searching for an escaped convict who stole a Texas Department of Corrections bus and crashed just 2 miles west of Centerville off Highway 7. This person is a high-security inmate wearing TDC whites, according to the Leon County Sheriff's Department. At this time, they're asking the public to be on the lookout for anyone suspicious. And right now, we can also tell you the Sheriff's Office is setting up a perimeter around the Centerville area. Be sure to stay tuned to KRHD for more details. And overnight, a separate manhunt in Burleson County saw local law enforcement searching for an out-of-state fugitive. A tip reached the Sheriff's Office yesterday evening saying that Todd Allen Wangler, a wanted fugitive from Florida, was possibly in the county, likely armed, and that he, quote, would not go to jail without a fight. That search was suspended in the early hours of this morning. After all leads were exhausted, a reported sighting just a few hours later helped police capture him. It's been 43 years since Sofia Felicita Moreno was last seen at her home in Bryan. Moreno's case is the longest active missing persons case in the Brazos Valley. She was 16 years old when she went missing. Her family and the Amber Alert Network of the Brazos Valley is still hopeful she can be found, even after all these years. If you have any information, please contact Bryan Police, the number right there on your screen. And happening now, yesterday actually, Wednesday, a federal appeals court reinstated a Texas law that prohibits large social media companies from banning users over political opinions. Some politicians have been vocal about platforms like Twitter having what they say is an anti-conservative bias. This law requires those platforms with over 50 million users to disclose why they remove content and suspend accounts. Critics saying the bill is an attack on the First Amendment, and no written opinion explaining this decision has been given out. On a similar note, certain Instagram filters are now being disabled for users in Texas. It comes after the Attorney General filed a lawsuit against Meta, citing the company's alleged misuse of facial recognition technology. The lawsuit says filters using facial geometry break Texas law. The technology reportedly learns a user's face, and then it can tag a person without their consent. The company maintains the technology is not facial recognition and it's not used to identify anyone. Well, summer is right around the corner. It really feels like it's here, and that means more of you may find yourself around our nation's rivers. While some rivers are known for their beauty, others, let's face it, are known for their pollution. But river enthusiasts are optimistic. There's some serious cleanup efforts that may turn that around. Our Joe St. George has more.
It's that time of year when the water starts to appeal to us all. If you're in the south, it's beginning to get hot. If you're in the north, the long winter is ended. And that is why it's the perfect time to get a status update on the state of our country's waterways.
A lot of people see this as an industrial river.
It's why we met up today with Rob Costco in a part of the country you might not think of when it comes to kayaking. We're on the Black River near Lake Erie, and while it may look like any old river, well, we'll let Rob tell you its nickname.
This river was known as the River of Fish Tumors.
Not every body of water in our country has a great reputation. Many industrial cities have struggled for years with pollution. In fact, all of these rivers around the Great Lakes are still considered areas of concern by the federal government.
Because of the rain episodes, you got a lot that's washing up.
While you may think that might scar a community from ever wanting to go near the water, Rob says something exciting is happening. Interest is back.
I view our river as a tourist river. You've got kayaking, you've got stand-up paddleboarding, you've got boating.
Why the optimism? Well, he says one reason is the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, which is getting a big boost in funding. President Biden recently announced $1 billion from the bipartisan infrastructure law will soon help fund more cleanup efforts, such as removing trash and dredging sediment.
There are days, here when the river turns brown or green that I wouldn't recommend that anybody go out in the river. It is pretty disgusting.
Mike Panuski is an engineer who helps oversee the Maumee River in Toledo, which is also an area of concern. He says the good news is that Republicans and Democrats are beginning to seriously fund river cleanup efforts. The bad news, $1 billion is nowhere near what's needed.
It's not enough, but it does provide a good down payment. The issue is that the majority of the polluters that caused a lot of these issues, they're long gone.
If you live elsewhere and are wondering why the Great Lakes is getting all this help, don't worry. In Florida, over $1 billion has been allocated to revitalize the Everglades. In Virginia and Maryland, over $40 million to improve the Chesapeake Bay. Denver's South Platte River is receiving $350 million, and along the Colorado River Basin in the West, over $250 million will help protect the ever-shrinking water supply.
There we go.
Back along the Black, Rob says it's a great time to love rivers. The next few years, he believes, will be transformational.
They all have such unique dynamics.
In Lorain County, Ohio, I'm Joe St. George.
It's a story positively Brazos Valley. It was history in motion today at One Bryan ISD Elementary School as fourth grade students got dressed up as historical figures of Texas. Fourth graders at Sam Houston Elementary put on their annual Living Statues Day event this morning. Students, staff, and visitors walking through the halls, learning about historical Texans. It's all part of a fourth grade social studies project. Students there dressing as historical figures such as Santa Anna, Stephen F. Austin, and even Willie Nelson.
It's been really fun to watch them work through this. It started off with them really just reading biographies and seeing, is there any commonality between me and this person? And then that kind of motivated them to research it. They wrote their own biographies on this, and then using that information, I then empowered them to say, okay, now we're going to become them.
The students also dressed up as historical Texas athletes, artists, and politicians. Another incredible story, a retired U.S. Marine who always put others before himself is finally fulfilling his dream of getting his associate in business.
A retired U.S. Marine who always put others before himself is fulfilling his dream of getting his Associate of Science in Business.
It's the pursuit of a dream, accomplishing a goal that I set out on, 25 plus years ago. I'm the first one in my family to actually go to college at any level and to get a degree. I was the first one in my family to graduate high school.
Mike says it took being heartbroken after losing both of his parents within 5 months of each other to have the motivation to keep going.
When I lost my parents, that was probably the motivation I needed to push me. You realize that, life is short.
Mike now looks to joining his youngest son in his senior year at Texas A&M this fall and owes credit to his academic advisor for helping his dreams come true.
And Miss Reyes was probably that inspiration I needed to help me realize that my goals were achievable, because she knew exactly what I needed to do and what courses to set me up on in the path that would give me the best opportunity for acceptance into Mays.
While Mike is an inspiration to others, Rebecca Reyes says Mike was her inspiration.
It was really inspirational to serve someone who all these years put so much time and effort and energy into making sure that his own children had the quality of education that he always imagined for them. And so to see him come back to school after such a long time and finally say, you know what, it's my turn, was really incredible.
After Mike finishes his degree at Texas A&M, he plans to go into medical equipment and device sales to help save people's lives.
Roche hopes to create scholarship funds for other students like him, giving them the opportunity to fulfill their dreams as well. If you want to stream Roche's graduation, head on over to our website at KRHDnews.com. In the Brazos Valley, Diamond Dixon, KRHD News.
Michael's set to graduate tonight, and you can check it all out over at Lynn's YouTube channel or on our website.
President Biden ordered flags lowered today to remember the more than 1 million Americans who have now lost their lives because of COVID-19. This milestone comes at a time when the pandemic is changing. Testing is no longer a reliable indicator of the virus spread. That's because much of that testing is happening at home or not at all. Deaths and hospitalizations are only gradually climbing, but Johns Hopkins experts say that we can't rule out another possible wave in the coming months. Now, there's also still a lot of research that needs to be done to better understand long COVID.
It's not yet clear if the vaccine and boosters protect you from long COVID or if different SARS-CoV-2 variants result in different long-term outcomes. But we do see that fewer people who were vaccinated report long COVID symptoms.
An estimated 9 million immediate family members in the U.S. are grieving the loss of a loved one from the virus. The president also met with world leaders today to talk about how to tackle the pandemic as we go forward. The second virtual global COVID summit focused on ongoing funding to continue expansion of vaccines. About 40% of the world's population is still not fully vaccinated. Many are children and people who live in poorer countries. Congress is stalled on requests for billions in additional funding to fight COVID here and abroad. Now, there's still work to be done around boosters for older Americans. An estimated 1 in 3 Americans over the age of 65 who were initially vaccinated still have not received a third dose, according to the CDC. Seniors are at the highest risk of serious illness from COVID and account for about 2/3 of deaths. Studies have shown that the booster makes older adults nearly 80% less likely to die from COVID. Health experts say that federal messaging around boosters needs improvement. Now, many older adults are also at risk of experiencing some additional health harm if they wind up in a hospital. Now, that is the finding of a new government accountability report that is out today. It found that 1 in 4 adults on Medicare experienced temporary or long-lasting harm that mainly led to longer hospital stays. We're talking preventable complications like infections. Now, that's down just a little from the last time this review was done. One of its recommendations is further cutting federal reimbursement to poor performing hospitals. New crash testing shows there is still a long way to go to improve driver assistance technology. We're looking at the real life street scenarios where it may work and fail.
Well, we're starting off with our Clark roofing cam overlooking Bryan College Station. Same story, different day, but there are maybe a few changes we could see going forward. Our high for today landed at about, looks like 93 degrees, that record of 94 a little bit closer. And it's just going to be a hot one as we continue going forward. Taking a look at what you could expect on your evening planner. South winds are going to be a little bit breezy, but they should calm down as we head towards those evening hours. Overall, we're going to stay above that 80-degree mark as we go forward until about 9 o'clock. And then for tomorrow morning, there's actually a little bit of some good news, especially if you've been kind of worn out by the hot and mild start to our day. There's a chance some of us will be underneath that 70-degree mark, so a little bit cooler. The bad news, though, is we're going to flip right back once again with those high temperatures above that 90-degree mark going forward for our Friday. And then as we look even further out, it looks like there's a chance we could get close to the 99, maybe triple-digit mark, but at the moment it's really not looking like it. There is a few shots that we could see maybe a shower or two slip into the mix, but you'll notice I've just been running this over and over for our morning to the afternoon. You'll see high temperatures landing in the mid-90s, those lows close to the low 70s. Our 10-day forecast is going to tell you the story the best of what to expect as we go forward here in the Brazos Valley. 95 for our high on Friday, going into the weekend. Partly cloudy skies, 94 for Saturday, 96 on Sunday. And then as you look further out, it's going to be even hotter next week, folks, with those high temperatures close to, say, that 98, maybe 99-degree mark for our Monday. Tuesday, 96, 96, 99. There's that slight chance, though, we could see some shower activity going into next weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see maybe a sprinkle or two on this weekend for Saturday in the afternoon, but we're going to keep an eye on that going forward. At the moment, looks like you could bank on partly cloudy skies with a high temperature of 94 degrees. A survey conducted by the Census Bureau Household Poll says some homeschooling rates saw a 5.6% increase from pre-pandemic to fall of 2020. KRHD News reporter Brittany DeFran is sharing how the increase is impacting a local homeschool.
While the pandemic felt like it closed some doors for some, for others, it opened them to the endless possibilities of education. Viewing the world of remote learning was an eye-opener for many families. For Kimberly Ramsey, it was that and much more.
For us was, I think, just the atmosphere that he was in. We noticed just him not really just being himself.
Others may be provoked by medical reasons or learning differences.
So those are still the same reasons. And then I think the reason for the rise is not so much that there's more reasons, but it seems more possible.
Families like the Ramseys see the accessibility in this option.
It was a relief, honestly, that there are other options and he can still have a ton of opportunities.
According to the Community Homeschool Center owner, Suzanne Gose, other local centers have expressed new homeschooling families have already begun signing up for the incoming school year prior to this year ending.
At the Community Homeschool Center, we have new people every year. You know, there's always new homeschoolers for various reasons. This year, the interesting thing was 1/3 of our new people were brand new to homeschooling.
Ramsey looks forward to helping cater to her son's various passions through his academic journey.
What's so neat is the kids can focus on more things that they're really interested in. And you can just see when they're interested in something and they love it, and they can kind of have a little bit more freedom.
During the data collection of the survey conducted, the state of Texas went from a 4.5% homeschool enrollment to 12.3% in 16 weeks. Reporting Brittany DeFran, KRHD News.
Right now, we are in a youth mental health crisis because of the pandemic. According to the CDC, more than half of students it surveyed say they've felt hopeless. Vanessa Mashania looks at why resources are not matching the need.
Kids have the weight of the world on their shoulders right now. And on top of this, experts tell me that we're facing another crisis. And that's the lack of mental health workers and school counselors to help these students get through this tough time.
Pre-pandemic, there were mental health issues. Since the pandemic, there has been an increase in depression and anxiety, deaths by suicide. I'll be very honest, I did not, even as a mental health professional, I would not have envisioned we are where we are right now.
Lisa Dansby-Williams loves her job, connecting students in need with mental health help, but seeing what students are going through right now has been heart-wrenching.
It's just been hard for many of the students and their families to navigate some of the resulting issues of the pandemic, whether that be domestic violence, homelessness, maybe families, mom, dad lost a job.
With all this need, the limited services available that Lisa can find for these kids are stretched paper thin.
We do have a limited pool of mental health professionals to employ. Some have been burnt out themselves by the pandemic.
The national recommendation for school counselors is 1 for every 250 students. According to the National Association of School Counselors, only 17.8% of school districts met that requirement, and only 4.2% of urban school districts met it, according to pre-pandemic numbers.
Now we are definitely seeing an increase in the number of students, families and staff, and even administrators that are referring students and families to us.
Alma Lopez is a school counselor in a California middle school.
It's been a challenge. You know, we're putting in some full days and then some. And so definitely the need to have more mental health professionals in the school building is an essential need right now.
What's been helping, she says, is the waning stigma around mental health and the increased awareness of the issues from lawmakers.
You know, on the national level, our leaders, they're working really hard to be creative with the funding that's being provided to schools across this country. They're really understanding that we've got to put the money and the resources, the attention in mental health.
But she believes more needs to be done, including help for counselors themselves.
People need to actually understand the role of the school counselor and of mental health professionals, right, in the school building.
Making sure that resources are available to them, support from administration, and then also making sure that they take care of themselves.
For mental health workers like Alma and Lisa, no matter what assistance may or may not come, they're going to show up for these students and be their much-needed rock, even if everything is so uncertain.
Right now, there's a greater need to help families, so if I can make it happen, that's what I try to do.
I'm Vanessa Mashania reporting.
All right, Vanessa, thank you. Good insight there. And as we're on the topic of mental health, researchers are working on a new way to assess someone's mental health. We do want to warn you that this story includes a discussion of suicide.
The way that we approach suicide risk screening is to ask people about these thoughts of death or thoughts of ending their lives. And we've known for decades that around half of those who attempt suicide or die by suicide will in essence say, no, I'm not having those thoughts right before they engage in the behavior. And what these findings would suggest is that it might be because we're asking the wrong questions, and that very subtle shifts in language and how we kind of think about the issue at hand can actually make a big difference.
Ohio State researchers found this had an impact on gun owners especially. They were more responsive to the question, have you considered a method of suicide as opposed to have you had suicidal thoughts?
Easy access to lethal methods is one of the strongest determinants of suicide attempt outcome and fatality. And we also know that the vast majority of people who survive a suicide attempt will actually never go on to die by suicide.
Researchers are now pushing healthcare facilities to update how questions are asked on mental health assessments.
There's a lot of policies that many systems have that make it actually very difficult to do something so simple. And so I think all that is to say is that what healthcare providers could do in the meantime is they could just verbally ask the question.
It's important to note that the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The number on your screen, 1-800-273-8255. Advances in self-driving cars are happening faster than regulators can keep up. Mercedes was just allowed to start selling level 3 technology in Germany, which means the car can fully drive on its own on certain stretches of roads under certain conditions. Mercedes wants to offer it in the United States by the end of the year, but there are still no federal regulations for autonomous passenger vehicles. Congress is pressuring the Department of Transportation for framework, admitting that the U.S. is behind. Okay, so that is an example of level 2 technology that is already on the roads and being tested by safety groups like AAA, which provided us with the video you're looking at right here. Now, these active driving assistance systems, or semi-autonomous features, are designed to give drivers a break from always having their hands on the wheel, but they still require eyes on the road.
These level 2 systems are in no way a self-driving type of system.
Well, there you have it. AAA engineers put driver assistance features from Hyundai, Subaru, and Tesla through various scenarios. They released what they found today in routine situations, like a car slowing down in front of you or when you approach a bicyclist. The technology did pretty well in slowing down the car and alerting the driver. But when it comes to less predictable situations, like an oncoming car weaving into your lane or a bicyclist crossing in front of you, most of the time the technology failed.
We were more or less just looking for some kind of very obvious alert to notify the driver that a potential collision was imminent.
Can we just talk about how hard crash test dummies have? Boy. Now, the crash test results are shared with manufacturers so they can make improvements, but responsibility is still on the driver.
Better and more robust driver monitoring systems should be integrated within these assistance features to make sure that drivers are not actively or passively misusing them. So in other words, a driver-facing front camera should be included with these level 2 systems.
Driver surveys found that they want these current features improved over the development of fully self-driving cars. Now, we have been telling you about the record number of people who are quitting their jobs, but now regret is starting to set in for some of those people. A growing number are even now going back to their old jobs. We'll take a look at what career experts are saying that you can do to best handle this situation. Even with gas prices high, the news feed starts with the White House deciding not to allow more drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, not drilling was a campaign promise of the president, but President Biden looked at the possibility of doing it with prices so high. The Army is ramping up its forces in Alaska. The goal is to make sure we are ready for fighting in Arctic climates. Both Russia and China have increased their presence in the Arctic. Now, for the first time, we have a picture of the black hole at the center of the universe. Now, this is only the second image of a black hole ever captured. The Event Horizon Telescope captured the image. It is an array of telescopes around the world. Incredible. All right, a severe shortage of dye used for CT scans and MRIs is forcing hospitals to ration care.
It may be that we just miss a cancer, or we diagnose a cancer later, or we're not able to see the extent of the cancer. And these are real potential harms.
What it's going to take to get this COVID-related supply chain issue fixed.
Bull riders from across the globe will travel to Texas, leaving it all on the line in the PBR finals. Paige Ellenberger caught up with a College Station man who's one of 40 qualifying for the event and shares what this opportunity means to him and his family.
Cody Teal, a small-town Texas boy, has big aspirations.
It's been a pretty crazy ride. It's been, kind of a dream come true for me since I was young. It's all I've ever wanted.
Born into a family with roots in bull riding, he has big boots to fill.
Seeing the pictures, hearing the stories, that's how what made me want to try it. And so I had a lot of support from him and my mom growing up.
From smaller arenas like this one, the Brazos County Expo Center, to the big screen, Teal has accomplished more than most.
5 in those ABBI rankings.
Qualifying at the Professional Bull Riding World Finals, something not everyone can do.
It draws the best from all over the world. So it's pretty special to be able to represent from where I'm from and where I live now.
But he says he couldn't do it without the support from his friends, family, and community.
I have a lot of friends and family in the area now, and so to have that support and from the community itself, it's pretty special, and it definitely means a lot. So looking forward to representing.
Teal heads to Dallas today with events spread out across the weekend. Summer is approaching the Brazos Valley in the next couple of weeks, which means a busy sports season, and we aren't talking Aggie, surprisingly. The City of College Station's Park and Rec released the summer 2022 sports schedule on their website. Tournaments including football, soccer, and softball will be happening this summer, and will be the Aggie Land Classic Senior Softball Tournament in July. Event director Keith Parker saying he's ready to descend on Aggie Land.
This will be our 11th year that we've been at Veterans Park for this tournament, and we can expect 40 to 45 teams coming into town. They'll bring in 14 to 18 players per team, so there's a lot of softball that goes on.
Qualifiers of the tournament will be headed to the finals in Las Vegas in September. The Aggie Land Classic and the rest of the College Station summer sports schedule is available over on our website at KRHDnews.com. Tonight at 10, we're going to be talking about the extra tourism dollars these tournaments will bring to the city. Well, tonight we're going to see those lows close to that 70-degree mark. A little bit of good news here when you take a look at what to expect overnight. Some spots are going to be just below 70 degrees, so a little bit cooler. But what does that say? Not much when your high temperatures are going to be above 90 degrees, close to record-breaking going forward. And you're probably feeling that when you're walking outside. The good news is it's been a gorgeous one across the Brazos Valley. You've probably been wanting to get outside and enjoy some of the sunny weather. But you're going to want to stay hydrated because this stretch just continues, and it's really been a remarkable May by any standard considering how hot it's been. For tomorrow, for our Friday, I think our highs are going to be a little bit warmer than this. This is probably underdoing it just a little bit, but generally you get the idea in the mid to lower 90s. And this is kind of that thing that we've been talking about, the cycle that just goes on and on. There is a slight chance we could see cloud cover build in, maybe bringing a sprinkler or two, it looks like, for the weekend for our Saturday, but Friday I just expect partly cloudy skies. Saturday, it looks like a lot of the shower activity is going to stay just north of us as well. So I really wouldn't expect too much. That high pressure is going to tighten its grip right back on our area as we go into next week. And next week looks even hotter. So taking a look at what to expect going forward, well, batten down the hatches because it looks like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday we're going to be close to the upper 90s here in the Brazos Valley. This remarkable stretch of summer-like weather, hot temperatures continues, and it just keeps going on and on. Take a look at our weekend. Saturday, 94 degrees, 96 on Sunday. Going into Monday, 98 will be our high, 96 overnight into Tuesday, and we stay above the mid-90s all next week.
A record number of people are still quitting their jobs. 4.5 million Americans quit in March alone. That's 3% of the entire labor force. But job switch regret is a real thing that's happening right now.
People moved too fast. They were prioritizing the wrong perks and the wrong benefits. And the challenge of being remote and the remote hiring process, folks just did not get a chance to ask all the right questions or really get those culture cues to let them know this is a good place for me.
Andrew McCaskill with LinkedIn says if you're thinking about leaving your current role, consider talking with your manager first. You may be surprised about how much they'll be willing to work with you to find a different opportunity within the company. A growing number of people who quit are even returning to their old jobs now, so-called boomerangs. Accounted for 4.5% of all new hires among companies on LinkedIn this year. That is up from 3.9% in 2019.
Part of it was during the pandemic, it was harder to sink roots into a company. I missed some of the colleagues and the confidence that I could do important work and add value and have impact was the most important thing.
Jim Klimas worked in HR at Adobe, but left in 2020 for a new opportunity. Last year, he returned to Adobe after just 18 months. Now, the average time that Americans boomerang back is also down, going from 22 months to now 17 months, according to LinkedIn. Now, historically, boomeranging has been seen as a negative thing. But that's not really the case now with the tight job market, as employees are having more of a voice than they really have ever had before.
I think it's the first time we've seen employers really welcoming that trend as well to say, we'd love to have you back here.
Your old job may be filled now, but there still may be opportunities inside the enterprise for you to come back to the company and take all of the skills that you used to have and the things that you've learned since and have a really high impact.
McCaskill says if you stay at a company a short time, make sure you have a thought out answer for when you'll get asked about this in your next interview. He says, be really honest if it just wasn't a good fit for you or if the role wasn't what you thought it was going to be. Your future employer should respect that, they say, but also make sure anytime you're leaving a company that you do it on good terms. Now, interest in food foraging has tripled in the pandemic.
When you go to the store, you don't have any connection with that food. You just pick it off the shelf, bring it home. You don't know where it came from, where it was growing, how it was treated.
Well, take a look at the big money savings he's seeing too.
It's a story we've seen play out right here in the Brazos Valley. Parents may be unable to feed their kids. Some across the state now turning to social media for answers. KRHD reporter Rebecca Fiedler has been following the story from the very beginning on the baby formula shortage. Today, she's speaking with doctors on what may not be a safe idea for mothers.
Moms like Denise Barney of College Station feel lucky that they're able to breastfeed their infants. But Barney says her heart goes out to parents who believe they need to resort to alternative food sources for their babies.
While I do feel for these moms, and I know that desperate times, calls for desperate things, I just don't think it's very wise, and you can really do damage to your baby.
Maybe you've seen this image here of an old recipe circulating in your local Facebook group. Or maybe you've seen posts like this. St. Joseph Health pediatrician Dr. Neil Spears says that while feeding your baby something alternative like evaporated milk or goat's milk might not cause an immediate emergency, these products do long-term damage because of their lack of nutrients like iron.
So this results in babies that are not fed formula or breast milk in substantial iron deficiency anemia by 1 year of age, which has been associated not just with growth and cardiovascular problems, but actually with problems with brain development.
Spears suggests parents can shop for different formula brands in store with the same ingredients as their brand of choice. Also, he urges parents to start introducing soft baby food as early as 4 months. Reporting in College Station, Rebecca Fiedler, KRHD News.
Congress is now stepping in to investigate the shortage of baby formula we're seeing across the country. A hearing is scheduled for later this month to look at what's being done to increase production. The shortage started getting bad back in February when Abbott Nutrition had a major recall over bacteria that also led to the FDA shutting down its Michigan plant, which is a major producer of baby formula. Abbott says it could have the plant up and running in 2 weeks if the FDA approves it. A pandemic-era trend is paying serious dividends for some people. Dan Grossman looks at how they're making their dollars stretch further by finding new ways to get their food.
We're gonna make some green cakes.
Lunch on a Thursday afternoon is a nice time to unload.
It'll be just kind of fresh and green. This mustard is gonna be the main, kind of the bulk of the greens that we're using.
For Orion Aon, it's a time when he experiments with recipes and ingredients as he allows his creativity in the kitchen to flourish.
Use some porcini powder. I foraged those porcinis last year.
A time when he becomes more connected to his world and ours.
When you go to the store, you don't have any connection with that food. You just pick it off the shelf, bring it home. You don't know where it came from, where it was growing, how it was treated. This stuff, I'm intimately familiar with its environment. There we go. We'll just keep going this way.
By trade, Orion is a production manager for the Colorado State Forest Service and a software engineer. But by nature,
you know, in a normal year, I probably get out 2 or 3 times a week.
He's a food forager who picks about 30% of his diet fresh from nature.
I don't see any peeking out yet. Normally people are eating maybe 30 different species a year. I probably get 100 to 200 different species a year in my diet, and that's kind of a conservative estimate.
Estimates from environmental social scientists at Ursinus College in Pennsylvania show interest in food foraging nationwide tripled during the pandemic as more people found ways to get outdoors. Some just went into their backyards to do it, others a local park.
See him in there?
But Orion has spent hours in the depths of forests and along riverbeds as he hunts all of his own meat, picks all of his own spices, and gathers many of the greens he uses in everyday meals.
This patch here, these are all last year's asparagus stalks. And this, as you would find in a store, is a spear of asparagus. You just snap it off and nice and crunchy and yeah, way better than store-bought asparagus. I rarely buy asparagus.
Not only has it offered him an outlet and connection, but savings as he bypasses a lot of the high prices most of us have seen while shopping for food.
I don't have a quantitative number to it, but there's definitely a savings there. You know, our pantry has a shelf that's just full of stuff that I've picked and preserved. Our freezer's full of stuff that I've hunted. So, you know, it could very easily be that we would skip going to the grocery store for a month and we could just eat that stuff if we wanted to. But, you know, there's that convenience factor at the grocery store. Hickory oil.
On this day, all the veggies in Orion's lunch were picked while we were out with him earlier that morning, and he'll have leftovers for days, if not longer.
Yeah, some people call it field to table. You know, for me, it's just cooking, right?
As he's found a way to feed his family while also feeding something deeper.
Having that connection from nature all the way to something you're eating it's pretty special, I think.
I'm Dan Grossman.
Malls used to be the places that we went for clothes, appliances, or even just to hang out. But times have changed. Much of that we do online these days. Through the pandemic, healthcare has moved more online as well, but there will always be that need for in-person care, and that's proving to be an opportunity to give malls new life.
You talk to anyone here, they'll tell you, this is where I came on the weekends to hang out with my friends.
For decades, it would have been hard for Joy Stiles and me to do an interview right here.
I mean, there were cars here every day. The Macy's was open. We had a JCPenney's, a Dillard's, and a Sears. Those were all the anchor stores.
But today outside the Global Mall at the Crossings, we don't have much company. This mall in the heart of the district she represents on the Nashville Metro Council closed in 2019.
People have been complaining in the community for years about how this has been sitting here empty.
Today on site, there is a library and a community college.
It just was like a very eerie feeling to know from when it used to be a vibrant mall to being very empty.
As well as the community center Thomas Floyd runs, where you can see inside the mall through this big window.
Yeah, it's just pretty wild.
I could see caution tape and an empty food court, but Stiles tells me one day we'll see patients coming to see their doctor.
It's going to afford everyone in the area the opportunity to be able to get to a medical appointment within 10 minutes.
The city of Nashville is buying the mall and plans to lease 600,000 square feet of it to Vanderbilt University Medical Center, which turned an old mall about 20 minutes away into a healthcare facility back in 2009.
They don't have to build a new facility. They don't have to pour a foundation. They don't have to dig. It's right here.
Medical facilities that really, you want privacy. You don't want a lot of windows. So depending on which parts of the mall you're taking over, malls are pretty convenient.
Few people know more about what we'll do with empty malls than Georgia Tech architecture professor Ellen Dunham Jones. She's kept a database on stuff like this for more than 30 years. She says almost a third of 1,500 former mall sites across the country are being repurposed beyond retail, becoming office space, apartments, and in the case of the 35 on this map, places for people to receive medical care, housing clinics and other care facilities. Since the pandemic started, she says a dozen more have announced plans to use empty space for healthcare.
I realize that for most people, they don't know what health equity is or have never heard of it, but they definitely know it when they see it.
I asked Tennessee Justice Center's Kanika Young if there's anything we're overlooking as medical care enters the mall space. Her group works to make sure everyone's access to health care is fair.
You know, with over 15,000 uninsured people in this zip code alone, will just having the facility actually meet those growing community needs.
She says improving transportation is also key. Vanderbilt told me they don't have specifics on what they'll put in this mall space and that it's years away from seeing patients. Councilwoman Stiles says a performing arts center is also part of the plan.
This is going to be, yet again, a focal point for the community, but in a whole new way.
Thanks for watching KRHD News at 6. I'll be back tonight at 10. Until then, have a great rest of your evening.